One sentence in Mandarin. That's all it took to wreck Danielle Harper's career. She was talking to her grandmother, nothing unusual, when a millionaire overheard just enough to end everything. By Friday morning, she was out of a job. It was 2:30 p.m. on a Thursday when her world started to unravel. Lunch rush had just died down at Juniper and Ash, a sleek, high-end fusion spot in the center of Santa Monica, the kind of place that charged $34 for a seared scallop and made you wait 2 weeks for a 6.45 reservation on a Tuesday. The lighting was warm, music low, plates were like art pieces, and the customers, mostly the kind who wore custom watches and didn't ask for prices, expected silence, smiles, and perfection. Danielle stood near the bar, wiping down an already spotless tray with a cloth. She wore the black button-up and apron-like armor, had done so for the past 3 years. She was quick, professional, always pleasant, but never fake. The regulars knew her name. Some of the staff called her the Wall because nothing rattled her, not drunk guys, not broken glass, not even rude customers who refused to make eye contact. But what happened that day wasn't about broken rules or bad service. Danielle's phone vibrated once. She glanced down. Popo, her grandmother, was calling from Taipei. That was unusual. She only called during emergencies or birthdays. Danielle stepped just behind the service wall, tucked between the wine rack and the espresso machine, and answered in Mandarin. Her tone was soft, respectful. A few quick sentences, checking on her grandmother's health, something about a doctor's visit, a medication mix-up. It was no more than 30 seconds. Then she hung up, tucked the phone away, and went back to clearing a corner table. She didn't know he was listening. Charles Remington II sat in the VIP section, table 7, sipping on a neat Japanese whiskey. He wasn't just a regular. He was the regular, tech investor, local power player. He liked control. He liked consistency. He liked being served by the same people who knew to refill his water with 2 cubes of ice, not 3. Danielle had waited on him at least 15 times before, never had an issue. Until now. That day, something shifted. He watched her, not with curiosity, more like suspicion. A flicker of disgust passed through his face, so quick you'd miss it if you blinked. He didn't say a word. But the next morning, Danielle was out of a job. And here's where things start getting strange. Danielle Harper wasn't flashy. She didn't need to be. At 27, she'd figured out exactly how to blend in while still being excellent at what she did. 5 days a week, she showed up early to Juniper and Ash, hair in a low puff, no makeup except for chapstick, and maybe some concealer if the dark circles were loud. She kept her head down, her eyes up, and her mouth closed. Unless she was greeting a guest. Outside of work, Danielle lived in a rent-controlled 1-bedroom off Pico Boulevard, with plants she talked to and a laptop full of half-written poems. Her free time went to her Popo, her grandmother, who raised her after her parents passed in a car accident when she was only 7. Popo had taken Danielle to Taiwan when she was a child, raised her on green onion pancakes and soap operas, and taught her Mandarin alongside love and discipline. By the time Danielle was 13, they had moved back to the States. Her Mandarin never left her. It was the language she used when she was alone, when she prayed, and when she dreamed. But here in Santa Monica, none of that really mattered. What people saw was a young black woman working in a luxury restaurant, and Danielle learned quickly that meant people assumed a lot of things. That she grew up in Leh, that she only spoke English, that she was just there for the paycheck. She didn't correct them. It wasn't worth it. "I didn't know you spoke Spanish," a guest had once told her after overhearing her on the phone with her friend from El Salvador. "It's Mandarin," she replied politely, and the man blinked like she just said she walked on water. Inside the restaurant, things were predictable. Her manager, Kendra, was the type to smile with her mouth, not her eyes. A former hostess turned front-of-house boss. Kendra liked neat uniforms, spotless menus, and servers who didn't ask questions. Danielle was the favorite in an unspoken way, not praised, not promoted, just relied on. She trained new staff, picked up shifts without fuss, never caused drama. Her closest co-worker was Milo, a half-Filipino busser who'd been working there for almost a decade. Milo was funny, sharp, and quietly protective of Danielle. They'd bonded over late-night shift meals and shared stories of feeling invisible in places where they worked twice as hard to be noticed. "You ever feel like we gotta wear invisible uniforms under these uniforms?" Milo once said. Danielle nodded. "Like being two people at once, one they see, one they don't." But she never let bitterness fester. That wasn't her way. She had seen too much pain growing up to let small slights slow her down. Her focus was to do her job, send money to her grandmother, and save up for culinary school one day. She had dreams, even if she kept them quiet. And when it came to Charles Remington IOI, she had no opinion. He was just another rich guy, rude but harmless. He came in with different women each time, talked down to staff, and left exactly 15% tips, like he was doing people a favor. But Danielle never let it get to her. Until that Thursday, it had been a slow shift. Rain had scared off the usual lunch crowd. Only 2 tables were occupied. One was a couple arguing about a prenup. The other was Charles, sitting alone, watching the rain roll down the glass window like it offended him. Danielle didn't notice his gaze as she answered the call. She didn't think it mattered. She spoke softly, kindly. Not gossiping, not being rude. Just a granddaughter checking in. But Charles didn't like it. And Kendra, well, Kendra was always 2 steps behind him trying to please him, like he had the keys to the whole restaurant in his pocket. And that's when the silence started to feel heavy. Like something was coming. But no one wanted to say it out loud. The call lasted maybe 30 seconds. Danielle leaned against the wall near the espresso machine, just out of sight, but still close enough to respond if needed. She didn't raise her voice, didn't draw attention, just whispered a few words in Mandarin as her grandmother explained something about her blood pressure pills getting mixed up at the pharmacy. Danielle reassured her gently, her tone soft, calm, almost musical. She promised to call back during her break, reminded Popo to drink water, and told her she'd take care of it that evening. Then she hung up, slid her phone back into her apron, and headed straight toward table 6, where someone had just asked for a refill on sparkling water. But table 7, the VIP table, wasn't empty. Charles Remington II had seen everything. From the angle where he sat, he had a clear view of Danielle. He was leaning back in his chair, arms crossed, his whiskey untouched in front of him. His face, stone cold. Danielle didn't catch the way he stared. Not at first. She was focused, moving from one table to the next, like she always did. But Milo saw it. He stood by the bar, stacking napkins into neat squares, his eyes darting between Danielle and Remington, like something wasn't sitting right. The air shifted. It was subtle, like a room where someone turned off the heat without warning. Danielle came by Remington's table, ready with her usual calmness. "Would you like another drink, Mr. Remington?" He didn't answer immediately, just looked at her, measured her. Then slowly he said, "Didn't know this place hired spies." Danielle blinked. "Excuse me, you speak Chinese now?" he asked with an edge in his voice. "That's what that was, right?" She paused. "Yes, I was speaking to my grandmother." He scoffed. "Right, sure." Danielle didn't know how to respond. What was that supposed to mean? "If you're gonna have secret phone calls during work," he added, leaning in slightly, "maybe make sure the language is a bit more familiar." She stiffened. I stepped off the floor, and it was a personal call. "I'm sorry if it disturbed you." He didn't say anything else, just waved her off like she was a nuisance. She walked away slowly, not out of fear, but because she didn't want to escalate anything. Milo was watching her now, eyebrows raised. He mouthed, "What was that about?" Danielle shook her head. The rest of her shift passed like wet concrete. Slow, heavy, uncomfortable. Remington didn't call her back, didn't complain. Just sat there for another 30 minutes, typed something on his phone, signed his check, and left without a glance. And Danielle? She tried to pretend it was nothing. Maybe he was having a bad day. Maybe he didn't like hearing a language he didn't understand. People like him were fragile, in strange ways. But when she clocked out, Milo caught her by the lockers. That was weird, what? The way he looked at you, like you were speaking some alien code. She zipped up her hoodie. People get weird when they can't label you. You think he's going to complain? She shrugged. Let him. She didn't mean it like a dare. She meant it like a tired truth. Let him complain. Let him say whatever he was going to say. She had done nothing wrong. That night, Danielle cooked dinner for herself and called Popo back. They laughed about something small. Popo asked about the weather in California, and Danielle asked about the market in Taipei. She went to bed early and slept fine, but the next morning, her name wasn't on the shift schedule. She thought it was a mistake at first, maybe a mix-up. Maybe she forgot she wasn't scheduled. But when she walked up to Kendra's office, something was already off. The door was slightly open. Inside, Kendra sat with a folder in front of her, eyes darting like she'd been rehearsing something. Danielle knocked. Hey, she said. I noticed I wasn't. Can you come in for a second? Kendra said, not making eye contact. Danielle stepped in. The door shut behind her. And that's when she realized. This wasn't a scheduling error. It was something much worse. Danielle sat across from Kendra, her hands resting on her thighs, back straight. She wasn't nervous. At least not yet. But something about Kendra's energy made the room feel smaller. Kendra cleared her throat and reached for the folder like it was a shield. So she began. I wanted to have this conversation face to face because I respect you. That was the first red flag. People don't say that unless something bad is coming. Danielle kept her face still. Okay, Kendra hesitated. We've been reviewing some concerns that were brought up regarding your conduct during yesterday's shift. Danielle blinked. Conduct. Yes, Kendra said, opening the folder, though it was completely empty inside. There was a guest who expressed discomfort with how you handled yourself. Specifically, the phone call you took during service hours. Danielle narrowed her eyes slightly. I wasn't on the floor. I was behind the service wall. It was a quick personal call. Nothing inappropriate. Kendra nodded like she was listening, but her expression didn't change. It's not just about the call, she continued. It's about how it was perceived. There were concerns about professionalism, brand image, communication. Danielle frowned. Because I spoke another language. Kendra finally looked her in the eyes, and that moment said everything. Guilt, hesitation, fear. It's complicated, Kendra said. Some guests don't like when things feel unfamiliar. So I'm being fired because someone was uncomfortable hearing Mandarin in a restaurant that serves Sichuan pork belly and Thai curry. Kendra flinched. It's not personal, Danielle. You've been a great worker, but this is about maintaining a certain standard. Danielle felt heat rise in her chest. Not anger, but the kind of deep, aching disappointment that doesn't come with yelling. It comes with silence, with looking someone in the eye and realizing they don't have the courage to tell the truth. This came from Charles, didn't it? Kendra paused. Then finally, he's a major investor. You know how these things go. Danielle exhaled through her nose. She didn't argue. What was the point? You could have defended me, she said. You could have told him I did nothing wrong. I have a job too, Kendra said quietly. I don't make the big decisions. Danielle stood up. You don't need to pretend you respect me, she said. Just hand me the paperwork. Kendra handed her a final check and a typed-up separation letter with the words failure to meet brand expectations in soft gray font. Danielle folded it in half without reading the rest. As she walked out of the office, Milo was waiting by the lockers. One look at her face and he knew. They really did it. Danielle nodded. Because of that phone call. I guess Mandarin's a threat now. Milo leaned against the wall, arms crossed, eyes scanning the ceiling like he was trying not to explode. They're not even hiding it, he muttered. He didn't like you talking in a language he didn't understand, and instead of checking him, they cut you loose. Danielle didn't reply. She was trying to keep her hands from shaking. People think racism's always loud, she said. They think it shows up wearing a hood or yelling slurs. But most of the time, it shows up in meetings like that, smiling, saying words like image and comfort, while showing you exactly where they think you belong. She took off her apron for the last time, folded it neatly, and placed it on the bench. You sure you don't want to fight it? Milo asked. We could talk to HR, maybe go public. Danielle thought about it. For a second, the fire in her chest said yes, but her heart was tired. I need a day to think, she said. As she stepped out into the parking lot, the California sun felt too bright. The same sun she had walked under hundreds of times before, only now it hit different. Not because the world had changed, but because it hadn't. She sat in her car for a while, didn't start the engine, just sat. Then finally pulled out her and typed a short message to Popo. I got fired today. I'll call you later. Love you. Then she opened her photos, scrolled to a picture of her and Popo making dumplings last December, and stared at it until her heartbeat slowed. But what Danielle didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the story was about to spread farther than anyone expected. Danielle didn't say anything publicly at first. She wasn't trying to start a war. She just wanted to breathe. The next morning, she stayed home. Popo called, worried, but Danielle assured her everything was fine. Just a break, she said. I needed one anyway. She didn't want her grandmother worrying over something so stupid, because that's what it felt like. Stupid, unfair, and exhausting. But Milo? Milo couldn't stay quiet. That same afternoon, he posted a message to a private Facebook group for service workers in the LA area. No names, no specific restaurant mentioned, just a simple paragraph. A coworker of mine got fired yesterday. Not for being late, not for being rude, not for breaking rules. She answered a 30-second phone call in Mandarin, in a restaurant that serves Asian fusion cuisine. The guest didn't like it. Now she's gone. Think about that. He didn't expect it to go anywhere, but by nightfall, it had already been screenshot, shared, and reposted on several public pages. Comments rolled in by the hundreds. That's disgusting. Sounds like they're scared of anything they can't control. This happened to my cousin too. Different language, same story. And then someone guessed the restaurant. Then someone confirmed it. By the end of the next day, Juniper and Ash had gone viral for all the wrong reasons. Photos of the menu were circulating. So were Yelp reviews dragging the place to pieces. Someone even found a clip of Charles Remington IA speaking at a tech conference and shared it with the caption, "This the guy who gets women fired because they speak Chinese to their grandma." Danielle's phone buzzed nonstop. Journalists reached out. Strangers DM'd her, offering support, advice, and a few conspiracy theories that made her laugh. But she didn't respond to any of them. Not yet. She needed time. Meanwhile, Kendra was scrambling. Staff were walking out mid-shift. A hostess quit on the spot. One of the chefs threw away a tray of duck confit and walked out without a word. Milo called Danielle that night. "They're in full damage control mode," he said. "Management's trying to make us sign NDAs." Danielle raised her eyebrows. "For what?" "They think you're gonna leak their secret ingredients. They think we'll talk." Too late for that, though. This thing's afire now. Danielle was silent for a beat. "I didn't ask for any of this. I know. But you didn't do anything wrong either." She sat on her couch, staring at her ceiling. "You think I should say something. I think you should do what feels right," Milo said. "But just know, people are listening now." The next morning, Danielle typed something. Not a rant. Not a sob story. Just a truth. "My name is Danielle. I was fired last week from a restaurant in Santa Monica after a customer complained about me speaking Mandarin to my grandmother on the phone. I wasn't rude. I wasn't late. I wasn't unprofessional. I was just speaking to someone I love in a language that's part of me. That's all it took to lose my job. If you've ever been made to feel small because of who you are, or how you speak, or where you come from, I see you. She posted it on Twitter. Within 12 hours, it had 40,000 likes. She was invited to speak on podcasts. Local news outlets picked it up. An Asian American advocacy group reposted it, and then so did several Black media accounts. The overlap sparked a conversation bigger than Danielle could have imagined. Language, identity, power, fear. People told their own stories. Of being told to speak English at work, of being mocked for accents, of losing jobs because they didn't fit the culture. Danielle read every comment she could. Some made her cry. Some made her angry. But mostly, they made her feel less alone. Popo called again. I saw the news, she said in Mandarin. Are you okay? I'm okay, Danielle answered. Tired, but okay. You always had a strong voice, even when you were small. Danielle smiled. It took losing my job to remember it. But the story wasn't finished yet. Not until Danielle faced the people who tried to erase her voice in the first place. 3 days after her post went viral, Danielle got an email from a name she didn't recognize. Subject line, request for conversation. Juniper and Ash response. The message was short, formal, cold. Danielle, we are aware of recent attention regarding your departure from Juniper and Ash. We would like to discuss a resolution and ensure both sides are heard. Please let us know if you are open to a brief meeting. J. Roth, legal counsel. She didn't reply right away. She reread the message 3 times, then closed her laptop and went for a walk. The beach was only 20 minutes away, and the sound of waves helped her think. They didn't want to make it right. They wanted her quiet, but something had shifted inside Danielle. She wasn't scared anymore. The next day, she agreed to the meeting. They met in a small office suite near Westwood. Roth was a gray-suited man with polite eyes and a voice like elevator music. Kendra was there too, sitting stiffly at the edge of her seat, hands folded like she was praying for it all to be over. Danielle didn't dress up. Jeans, plain white t-shirt, no earrings. Just her and her voice. Let me be clear, Roth began. We want to offer a formal apology and a financial settlement in exchange for closure on this issue. Danielle tilted her head. Closure for who? We understand that emotions are high, Roth said carefully, but our client has received threats. The restaurant's reputation is being damaged. Danielle leaned forward. You're worried about a restaurant's reputation. I lost my income, my peace of mind, over a phone call. We're not here to debate the details, Roth said. Danielle glanced at Kendra. You knew it was wrong, didn't you? Kendra looked away. I followed every rule, Danielle continued. I never gave you problems, never showed up late, never disrespected anyone. But one rich man felt uncomfortable not understanding what I said, and suddenly I was a risk to your image. Roth shifted. We are offering you 3 months severance and a statement of apology. Danielle let the silence hang. She stared at him so long he looked down. Finally, she said, I want the apology to be public, no NDA. I want you to admit I was let go because someone didn't like hearing me speak my own language. That's not, or we don't have a deal. Roth hesitated. Kendra finally spoke. We'll issue a statement, she said, voice cracking slightly. You didn't do anything wrong. I should have spoken up. I just didn't want to lose my job. Danielle's voice was steady. I did. That afternoon, Juniper and Ash posted a formal statement on all their platforms. We acknowledged that the termination of Danielle Harper was handled in a way that did not reflect our values of diversity, respect, and inclusion. Speaking another language, especially one tied to family and heritage, should never be grounds for dismissal. We sincerely apologize to Danielle and the broader community. We are reviewing our internal policies and staff training moving forward. The comments were mixed. Some people applauded the apology, others called it performative, but Danielle didn't care. She had spoken her truth and now it lived outside of her. A week later, she sat with Milo on a bench overlooking the ocean. "You did it," he said, passing her a cold soda. Danielle shrugged. "I didn't do it to win." "No," Milo said. "You did it so they'd finally see." She smiled, but it was a tired smile. "People always talk about finding your voice," she said, like it's hidden somewhere. "But I didn't lose mine. I just got used to lowering it." Milo nodded. "They made you feel like it was too loud, but it never was," she said quietly. "It was never too loud." Danielle didn't just get fired. She got free, and freedom has a sound. It sounds like your own language spoken with no fear in front of anyone, no matter who's watching. Danielle didn't go back to the restaurant business, not because she couldn't, but because she didn't want to shrink herself anymore. A month after the incident, she used part of the settlement money to enroll in a part-time culinary program at a local college. Nothing fancy, no Instagram-worthy kitchen, just stainless steel tables, sharp knives, and a room full of people who actually listened. She started a blog too. At first it was just recipes and photos of her grandmother's old dishes, scallion pancakes, beef noodle soup, soy braised eggs. But she began writing about language, about being Black and multilingual, about what it means to be seen as confusing just for being who you are. It took off. People wrote in saying her stories made them feel understood for the first time. One woman from Oakland said she'd stopped speaking Spanish at work years ago because it made her coworkers uncomfortable. A kid from Fresno said he played Danielle's post for his whole class during a presentation on identity. Even strangers from other countries were commenting, offering solidarity, sharing their own stories. Danielle didn't ask to be the center of anything, but life has a funny way of handing you a microphone when you least expect it. And this time, she kept it. She still calls her popo every few days. They still speak in Mandarin. Only now, Danielle answers with the phone on speaker, not hiding, not whispering, just living. And if someone's uncomfortable, that's their burden, not hers. Here's the thing. Silence doesn't protect you. It just gives other people permission to erase you quietly. Danielle didn't start a protest. She didn't burn anything down. All she did was speak, and for some people, that was the loudest, most dangerous thing she could have done. But she didn't speak to fight. She spoke to exist. And that is more than enough. If you've ever been told to tone yourself down, to stay quiet, to make someone else feel more comfortable at your expense, remember this. You don't owe your silence to anyone. Not to keep your job, not to keep the peace, not to fit someone else's narrow idea of who you're allowed to be. Your story matters. Your voice matters. So speak. Speak loudly. Speak honestly. Speak in the language your heart knows best. If this story hit you somewhere deep or reminded you of something you've lived through, share it. Let it start conversations, because truth spreads faster when we stop pretending we're alone.